Thanks to personality assessments such as the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, most of us know whether we're introverts or extroverts. According to Susan Cain, the north and south of temperament, where we fall on the introvert-extrovert spectrum, is the single most important aspect of our personalities. In this book, the author not only explains what being an introvert means but also the scientific basis thereof. This gives us a better understanding of how introverts differ from extroverts biologically, as well as from how they perceive the world to how they maneuver through it. Quiet focuses on the experiences of introverts specifically, because Susan Cain shows that the world is geared towards and designed for extroverts, making relevant traits the default. It's sort of like how things are easier for right-handed people. This situation has made life tougher for introverts to succeed, or even if they do, to feel secure in themselves. Therefore, through this book, the author shows us why both temperament types are valuable and how to fit into an extrovert-dominated world without an introvert losing their sense of self. This book focuses mostly on Western, if not American, standards. But due to globalization, the effects of the extrovert ideal are widespread. Cross-cultural research has shown that the extrovert ideal is not a cultural default. In the East, it is much more likely for people to be introverted rather than extroverted. The core cultural values are different. As such, first or second generation Eastern immigrants to Western countries may find it hard to adapt and fit in. Worse, some find it challenging to excel in work because of how extrovert traits are prioritized. Different civilizations are based on different core values. It is this diversity that makes life interesting. With an increase in connections and the shrinking of distance thanks to technology, it is worthy to keep these differences of temperament in mind. During the turn of the 20th century, a cultural revolution reached a tipping point, one that changed who we are, how we act, and those we admire. It spurred the evolution of job interviews and employee candidates alike. America went from being a culture of character to a culture of personality. The focus of important values changed from being what kind of people we were in private to what kind of person we were perceived as. With this change, it became important that you learn communication and presentation skills, that you could interact and socialize with others and make a good impression on them. Without these abilities, it is difficult to succeed in school or at work. Positions of leadership are preferentially given to those who are gregarious, passing over those who struggle to make their voices heard. This emphasis on extroversion or extrovert ideal has made it so that loud and conviction-filled voices are heard and prioritized. These people are persuasive and often get their way because they take action first, leading the charge to effect changes in businesses and societies. However, they don't necessarily lead us down the right path. When we think of leaders now, we imagine inspiring people who can convince us to do anything. However, this style doesn't necessarily work all the time and leaves out a good portion of capable people. Style matters, but so does substance. Based on research conducted by Professor Jerome Kagan, infants who react strongly to new stimuli are labeled as high reactives and those who have mild reactions as low reactives. Kagan hypothesized that high reactives would grow up to become introverts and low reactives into extroverts. This is later seen to be the case. Introverts are more sensitive to their environments, reacting more strongly. This can be seen in other studies that test such reactions to stimuli as eye dilation, sweating, salivation, and others. Temperament is inborn, capable of being inherited, and can be assessed biologically. However, our personalities are shaped by our cultural influences and personal experiences. That said, low reactives can become introverts as well. There are different routes to becoming an introvert or extrovert. While biology plays a part, it isn't written in the stars or your genes. It's just that when you have certain traits, you tend to seek out niches and experiences that reinforce those characteristics, like a positive feedback loop. We know that it is possible to act out of character or against your natural temperament when the situation calls for it. But isn't that going against the value of staying true to yourself? Is it always necessary to force yourself into a persona that is not your own to get ahead in school or work? Well, a difference in style can mean a lot in terms of influence, as we can and do see in everyday life. Asking someone else to appreciate your style may not work. That said, you might find that some aspect of your life requires you to adopt traits that come less naturally to you. But thanks to the free trait theory, we can accomplish this. When we have to act out of character for certain situations, we must do so for causes that we hold dear. This manner of behavior may not be worth it for something we don't believe in and tires us out more. Meanwhile, you should always prepare restorative niches for yourself, allowing your natural temperament to shine through. Let yourself breathe, in other words, even when you're diving down to collect pearls. Some people may not seem like introverts even though they are. Not all introverts are incapable of making speeches and seeming confident and dynamic. Despite our temperaments, we are capable of acting outside of our comfort zones and presenting ourselves in a different light. We can stretch our personalities, but only up to a point. This act tires us out as well because we still function based on the rules governed by our temperaments. Since there is free will, we can use it to shape our own personalities. It may take some effort, and others may have it easier, but it can be done. Not all introverts are quiet as a rule. It is possible to learn to stand out and speak with confidence and conviction. But you may not necessarily be able to do that as an introvert without fear or worry. The point is that you can temper how you respond to it or get used to it such that you are not incapacitated. When you have to act out of character, remember to allow yourself breaks. You need to be able to rest and recuperate from the experience or risk suffering burnout or depression later on. This is because stepping out of our comfort zones requires effort and energy. You can't run a marathon at the same breakneck pace, after all. Our personality, and especially where we lie on the scale of introversion-extroversion, defines how we live our lives. It is the filter through which we perceive the world and therefore how we react to it. From there, it can plot out and determine the course of our lives, shaping our interests, friend groups, the way we resolve problems and conflicts, what career to pursue, and whether we succeed. This is perhaps why introversion and extroversion are traits that are exhaustively researched by psychologists. After decades of study, discoveries have been made linking these traits with others, as well as how there are biological and physiological bases for them. 1/3 of Americans are introverts. However, not all of them may present themselves to you as such. This is because even though this trait defines much of our lives, it may be suppressed or hidden. Introverts are seemingly boring. They are more attracted to the inner world of thought and feeling rather than the external world of people and activities. Rather than plunge into events, introverts seek to find a deeper meaning within them. Socializing is different for introverts and extroverts, with the former being drained by it and the latter being energized. With group work being emphasized in school and the workplace, introverts naturally find it hard for their ideas to be heard and taken seriously. However, research has shown that good ideas don't necessarily come from group activities such as brainstorming sessions. It is more likely for you to come up with innovative and practical ideas when you are thinking through problems and working on your own. One way to gain mastery is through deliberate practice. It is something that can only be done solitarily, as it requires focus, self-reflection, and concentration. You figure out what you're not good at, what challenges you, and focus on improving that aspect through deliberate practice. This cannot be done in a group setting as you will not be able to work on yourself. With an increase in group size, performance gets worse. Collaborations do indeed help, but it should be done in a format where problems can be thought about and dissected on your own first too. Forcing someone to come up with something on the spot while being distracted by others won't help much. In a world where much of society is geared for extroverts, why is it that a significant portion of us are introverts? In terms of evolution, why hasn't this trait been bred out due to its obsolescence? As the partnership between Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt demonstrates, along with how certain individuals prospered during the Wall Street crash, it is not necessarily true that introversion is not competitive. To take the evolutionary analogy further, diversity is what keeps species alive. Therefore, people must be diverse in terms of temperament for society to progress and prosper. Extroverts are naturally more sensitive to rewards. That makes them great business people and investors. However, this same sensitivity can become a pitfall. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement and going too far because it is not in their nature to stop and reassess a situation. On the other hand, introverts tend to hang back first. This difference in strategy means that both can excel, though perhaps in different circumstances. That said, the world benefits from having these two different kinds of temperaments. It's only a question of knowing when to prioritize which and not leaving one behind for the other. How then, when the requirements and comfort zones of introverts and extroverts differ so, do couples or friends of opposing temperaments handle relationships together? Are they doomed to miscommunicate forever? Of course, that is not so, although some tolerance and effort are needed. As an extrovert, you may want to socialize with others, perhaps in a large group, and bring your loved one to join you. But if you are the introvert being dragged along, you may not enjoy this scenario one bit. How do you compromise? It's possible for introverts to enjoy social events, too. However, it is tiring for them to focus on too much at a time, and so too many people can be discouraging. As such, allowing introverts to insert themselves into small groups is much preferable to a huge ongoing conversation with many speakers. Due to a difference in sensitivity between the two temperaments, introverts tend to avoid conflict, while extroverts are confrontive copers. This means that extroverts prefer argumentative disagreements, as it gives them a platform. Based on a study, it was found that extroverts prefer those who act competitively towards them, while introverts prefer friendly types. The avoidant style of introverts in conflicts, as seen by extroverts, may present as uncaring of the situation at hand. We all want what's good for our children, but how can we make sure that an introverted child gets the love, understanding, and patience that they need when the world focuses on extroversion as the default? Forcing an introverted child to socialize more and become louder isn't going to help them at all. Conversely, you might signal to them that there is something inherently wrong with how they are and ruin their self-esteem. It isn't that they cannot relate to others or socialize with them. For introverts, new situations are scary and they are more affected by them. They need time to assess the situation and get used to how things are before they can act. As parents, you must find ways to slowly get them used to situations that are scary to introverts. You must first equip the child with tools to handle these situations, practicing with social interactions beforehand when necessary.